Okay. So good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing okay today. Last time when we met to speak about American highways, especially Lincoln Highway, I already introduced myself, so please let me skip it this time. The only thing I would like to mention again is that I am an author of a website that is related to American culture and traveling across the United States. And one of the article I created a couple of months ago was about the best places to live in the US. I am saying this because it was inspired by a question of someone who was planning to move from Poland to America. I don't know what were the reasons of such decision, but I remember exactly that the decision was about which places I would recommend for him to choose. So honestly speaking, it surprised me a little bit because I am not from the US. But on the other hand, I knew how important and complex that decision must have been for that person. So I didn't want to write just any random suggestions based on my intuition. Quite opposite, it inspired me to check what is the reality, what are the best places to live in America nowadays. So not 20 years ago, but currently. I just wanted to double check whether my look at some data, collect all the important information, and then sum up all the trends in a large separate article. I got an information that my internet is quite low. Can you confirm that you can hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, then back to the topic. Yes, so I remember it took me a lot of time, and very quickly I realized that it is a very difficult and complex topic with at least a few factors that must be taken into consideration, and a few steps that must be made. And actually, this is exactly what I'd like to do with you today. I will just try to repeat the research, all the steps one by one to find out which American cities are currently the best to live in. Okay, so let's begin. And again, just like the last time, don't consider it as a real lesson, but more as a friendly meeting that is supposed to inspire you to learn more about the topic if only you feel that it might be interesting. The last time there were many pictures, stories. The previous speech was also a little bit about traveling, while today we'll just have to look at some maps and perhaps a bit boring data to analyze and to analyze everything and come up with some conclusions. But anyway, I hope it will be interesting and maybe even surprising in some parts. All right. At the beginning, I mentioned that the last week we spoke about Lincoln Highway, and I didn't do it without a reason, because actually it was a good introduction to the topic that I am covering today. As you remember, American highways have always been a symbol of change, of development, of migrations. There were times when people used to travel west for 3,000 miles, sometimes barefoot, just hoping to find opportunities and a bit of luck and in general a better life. And nowadays times are different. You don't have to walk barefoot for 3,000 miles, but still people move a lot, much easier than ever to many various places. And they all have the same goal, to find a better place to live, exactly like hundreds of years ago. So actually not much have changed, because generally speaking, the needs and goals for those who decide to migrate stay exactly the same. This is why I would like you to consider our last meeting as an introduction. And today we will continue this topic and keep speaking about migrations, but not these from the past anymore. However, before I show you current trends, I have to present what were the key population and business centers in the US a couple of decades ago, because it is very, very important to see how everything has been changing. I think it wouldn't be possible to understand the current trends without that brief background from the past. So now for a couple of minutes, I will talk about places that may be considered as the former best places to live in America. And this is also exactly what I did when I was preparing my article. I come from Poland, so please let me base this part on the example of Polish immigrants. Historically speaking, the first Polish settlements were located in Texas, quite close to San Antonio. Here you can see a church in Panna Maria, which was the very first Polish town in the US, created in 1852. But let's consider it only as a sorry to say that, but fun or surprising fact, because the population of these villages in Texas was not very significant, just a couple of hundreds Poles in total. But anyway, I felt obliged to mention that. But a much more important question is, where have most Poles settled? And the answer is in northeastern states along so-called Rust Belt. This is more or less where the Rust Belt is located. And I mentioned Poles, but definitely most, if not all, European groups have settled exactly here. Why? There were at least two major reasons. First of all, it was just easy to settle here. European ships departing, for example, from England or Germany were, of course, arriving in most cases to Ellis Island in New York City, where now is a museum of immigration located. You can see it here on the picture. So it was very simple and convenient to stay in New York, or perhaps move somewhere not too far. Buffalo, Detroit, Erie, Toledo, Pittsburgh, and of course Chicago with Milwaukee are just a couple of examples of where Polish people used to move. But as I've said, not only them, also many other immigrants from the Baltic states, Hungary, Germany, Italy, Ireland, Russia, the Balkan states, and so on. And the second reason of choosing this area, and also of such a huge movement within the Rust Belt, was, let me put this simply, seeking easy to get achievable jobs. Nowadays, the area is called the Rust Belt because many former heavy industry companies disappeared. But 100 years ago, the whole area was full of factories, various manufacturers, the whole automobile industry companies. They all needed cheap, not necessarily experienced workforce. So it was just a perfect opportunity for immigrants who were often coming from very poor European villages, who didn't know the language, didn't have much experience. They just decided to begin their life again in a totally new environment on the other side of the world. So jobs, not very well paid, but easy to get, were one of the two main reasons to settle here. And a fun fact that proves it is is that when Dodge opened its car factory in Hamtramck, just after a couple of years of its existence, 70% of the town's population was Polish. You can see a picture. Showing this factory here, and we don't know that for sure, but we can assume that these people on the photo were actually Polish immigrants creating a Dodge car. At the same time, other side of the country was getting more and more popular among Asian communities, often for similar reasons, but also among Americans themselves, because the West Coast had a very good reputation, good image, and was supposed to bring opportunities and a better life for those who wanted to come there. We talked about it during our last meeting, so let me skip it today. But to sum up this historical part, for decades, the best places to live in America were the northeastern states and California. But America evolved. America has always been changing and never stopped to change. This is why internal migrations are such a fascinating topic nowadays, in my opinion, because it connects present with past. What we can see today is turning away from all these formerly popular areas, which once used to almost guarantee prosperity. So what does it look like currently? Let's see. This map is almost 10 years old, but honestly speaking, not much has changed since then. I promise to show you a fresh map from 2021 by the end of this meeting. But firstly, let's take a look at this one from 2013. what you can see here is a massive domestic migration of Californian and New York citizens who moved out from these states to other places. We can also see that, for example, Illinois and Michigan residents migrated. So what it means is that the old prosperous states were not so wonderful anymore around 10 years ago. Of course, this is perhaps a very unfair generalization and that maybe I should avoid, but well, you can't deny such clear trends. And it's only the beginning, because in a moment I will show you more stats that prove that indeed something is going on. So what is it exactly? What is happening in America? The truth is that a lot is happening, and it is a very complex topic. To cover it properly, we should speak about local and state taxes, including sales taxes, property taxes, income taxes, corporate taxes, then about the areas where businesses owners tend to locate their offices, so where jobs are. Then we should take into consideration the possibility to work online from home, which allows people to move without losing their current jobs. Then there's safety, access to hospitals, quality of education, but also such factors like climate, average temperatures. So it is a very, very difficult topic. On these two maps alone, you can see how income taxes may differ depending on a state. There are two types of such taxes shown here, and the differences are very significant in each case. And there are tens or maybe even hundreds of similar maps in the internet with various data, some other taxes, fees, and charges. So of course, we'll not speak about such details now, because the truth is we would have to probably open a bottle of wine or take a huge cup of coffee and sit over them together for the rest of the night. Instead, I think I could simply summarize everything, all these details, by saying that what is the most important for people who decide to migrate is money and happiness. By money, I mean what you can earn in average and what are the costs of living in a chosen place, including taxes you have to pay, prices of houses, food, medical care, and any other costs. So simply speaking, money that you can earn and money that you have to spend in general. And by happiness, I mean a general quality of life, so the quality of education, safety, health, comfortable climate, access to parks, playgrounds, swimming pools, shopping malls, cinemas, friendly neighbors, quiet streets, good cuisine, nice looking bars, and so on. Just anything that make you feel happy, that make you enjoy a chosen place. So if we want to say what are the best places to live in America today, we should analyze these two general factors, happiness and money. And then, of course, compare our results with the current migration statistics to see if they can prove we are right with our research. So firstly, let's take a look at the list of the happiest neighborhoods in the United States. This is a list I found in the internet when I was preparing my article. So all sources and annotations may be found on my website, but also, of course, here. And I will also show them on one of the last slides for your reference. This list shows happiness. It means we assume we have unlimited budget and just want to find the best quality place to live, regardless the cost of living. And this is how it looks. The list was created last year and shows 10 neighborhoods that are considered to be the happiest places to live in the US. And what we can see here? Well, I would say that we can see a lot of Californian areas on the list, right? At least this is what I noted immediately when I was taking a look at it for the first time. And then I started to compare this list with migrations data and began to wonder why people move out from California if it is such a great quality and prospering state. And the reason is very simple, actually. These are just small districts, not whole states, not even whole metro areas, not cities, just small, we can say, premium quality districts. And let me show you just two very quick examples of what I mean. The map we are looking at now shows Los Angeles metro area. All this huge gray territory is Los Angeles with all surrounding towns and cities. It is a satellite photo, so of course the visible gray color is caused by millions of buildings and streets. And as you can see, in reality, all these towns and cities and districts and neighborhoods create one giant metropolitan area. Okay, so our list says there are 2 places in that huge area considered to be the happiest cities in the US. I'm pretty sure there are more fine districts, but the 2 of them are ranked as the best. So let's take a look at them. Here is Huntington Beach, this very small yellow circle south of Long Beach. I hope you can see it. Huntington Beach is a beautiful city by the ocean. You will find a promenade there, great bars, plenty of rest areas, life that is not that fast, that is a bit more pleasant and quiet, just the perfect place to be. But as you can see, it is rather small when compared to the whole metro area. It is just a small part of it. And here is Irvine, number 4 on our list. Located in the valley, between hills, very safe, very clean, with a beautiful city center, amazing landscapes around, with plenty of large villas. In many parts, it doesn't even look like a city, honestly speaking, but of course it is a part of LA metro area, quite famous, by the way. What this proves is that if only you have a good job, if only you can afford living in an expensive area, there are plenty of wonderful places to choose from within such metro areas as San Francisco or Los Angeles, for example. This is what the list shows, and absolutely nothing more. If you type Fremont or Irvine or Scottsdale or Huntington Beach and ask Google whether they are safe or clean or what the quality of life is there, Google will show you tens of articles proving these are top quality places. But at the same time, you'll see that prices there are incredibly high, much higher than in other areas, because the other areas are in most cases poorer, not that safe, not that clean, not that quiet, and not that fancy. Unfortunately, California, but not only California, is an extremely diversified state, and these premium areas are not affordable for most people, especially in recent years, because the sad truth is that for decades, all the famous cities across the United States have been becoming more and more expensive to live in. And now, in some cases, the prices are, I would say, ridiculous, way above the national average, that's for sure. And even typical districts, so not these fancy ones, become really difficult to afford for many people. San Francisco is regularly called the most expensive city in America. Just to give you an example, an average house there, not the most expensive one, an average house in San Francisco costs over $1,300,000. $1,300,000 US. While in Naples, which is a very famous, very beautiful, and quite a luxurious city in Florida, just over $300,000, so four times less. Which means the difference is not just significant; it is huge. Actually, I think you would agree with me, wouldn't you? We compare 2 beautiful cities, both by the coastline, both quite famous, both ranked as some of the best cities to live in America. But buying a house in the one in Florida is 4 times cheaper than in San Francisco. I would also like to add that I speak about California a lot because this is an extreme example, but also in case of New York City, the differences are, well, maybe not that big, but still the general situation is very similar because New York City is at least twice as costly as Naples or Miami. In addition to prices of houses, also many taxes are higher than in Florida. Gas is very often more expensive, food as well, and so on. Okay, so now I suggest to carefully take a look at another list. This one is fresh from 2021. And it is much more informative and much more accurate, especially in case of our meeting today, because it shows averages for the whole metropolitan areas, so not only selected as expensive towns or districts. What's more, it counts not only the quality of life, but also money. both salaries and cost of living. So the previous one was presenting the quality of life and nothing more, and this one takes money into consideration and links it with all the other factors. In other words, we can say that this list shows the metropolitan areas where you get most bang for your bucks. It can suggest which areas should be considered if a person plans to move somewhere in the US. Okay, so what can be seen here? First of all, I would like to point out that there is only one Californian city or metro area, and it is San Francisco. So not any district of the metropolitan area, but San Francisco in general is still considered to be one of the best places to live in America, which is a great result. Probably in terms of general happiness, it could be close to the top of the list, but probably because of ridiculous prices, it is only in the middle. As you can see, the top positions belong to areas in Colorado, Texas, North Carolina, Iowa, Arkansas, and Oregon. So this might seem a little bit surprising, I think. Also, I'd like to point out that there are 2 cities in Florida a bit lower, including Naples. Now let's compare this list again with the internal migrations map from 2013, which you already know. Here you can see top origins and top destinations in 2013. So it is the same map we've already seen at the beginning. Of course, the exodus from California and many northeastern states is clearly visible. And what you can see is that people in 2013 used to move to Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Texas, Florida, Oregon. So many of the states were the best cities from our previous list. And it looks very similar. And now a similar map, but from 2020. And in general, it also shows the same trends. The most often chosen destinations are green, and the red color represents, of course, the states from where people tend to move out the most often. Okay, maybe one more comparison. Okay. As I said at the beginning, not much really changed. Of course, there are some differences, like the one that in 2020, Texas has no longer been one of the most desired states. But we should also remember that at the time, it was the second most affected by COVID-19. So maybe this had some impact on the results. I'm not sure about it. But anyway, the general pattern definitely stayed the same. People keep moving out from California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, and not only. Why? Mostly because of cost of living, taxation, legislation sometimes. The trends are very clear and they repeat year by year. Many Americans move to Florida, Arizona, Idaho, Oregon, South Carolina. As far as I know, Hawaii is also quite popular among some groups of Americans. So in my opinion, these areas should be considered as the best places to live currently in average, because both maps from 2013 and 2020, as well as the previous list, shows quite similar trends. So the conclusion is very clear, I think. Okay, so let me get back to my article that I have mentioned at the beginning. When I was creating that article, this is exactly what I checked, and these are exactly the conclusions I came up with. But before publishing, I decided to use local Facebook groups and reconfirm everything for the last time, you know, to not to make fool of myself. So I asked Poles who live in America what they think about it, what they think about living in such states as California or New York. I asked them how common it is to move out from there and why. And surprisingly, a lot of people agreed that such a movement is getting more and more visible. Very often I read that indeed money is the main reason, but also climate, and very often politics and politicians. This surprised me a lot, but such opinion used to be repeated many times. California and Florida are currently, California and Illinois are currently very liberal states, and apparently there are many residents who believe it is getting too liberal, and some people claimed that this was one of the major reasons for them to move out or to start thinking about moving out. Also, when when at work I had an occasion to speak face to face with one of the Polish citizens who lives in Chicago, I asked him about all these factors, all these factors that happen in the US. And he confirmed that Florida is very popular among Poles and other ethnic groups from Europe. And he used exactly the same arguments: money, politics, and climate, with all its advantages like sunny beaches, palm trees, fresh cuisine, and so on. So to sum up, money, for sure, but also the general quality of life and sometimes even politics, as you can see, are often key factors for people deciding to change their area of living. And the fact is that such famous states as California, New York, Illinois, and some others, on some other states, are depopulating. And states like Florida, Arizona, Idaho, Oregon, South Carolina, and perhaps Texas again, have become popular destinations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you won't mind if I end here. This is some kind of a mistake. Okay, here. All right, as I've said before, it is a very complex issue, and I'm pretty sure we could sit together and wonder about various cases and reasons and spend hours on that. But today, all I wanted to do was to plant a seed to show that many people run away from such well-reputed states as California, Illinois, or New York, to bring up this issue briefly and make you feel interested maybe in it. Here are some reliable websites that I recommend to visit. So please take a picture if you wish to save them for the future. And of course, if you'd like to ask me any questions, please write me an email anytime. I really wouldn't call myself an expert, rather passionate, but who knows, perhaps I will be able to help you somehow. Here you can see my email address, my website, so feel free to use them. And okay, this was my second and at the same time my last meeting with you guys. So let me finish by saying thank you for the Center for American Studies for organizing such an amazing summer school. And of course, I would also like to thank all of you for your participation both today and the last week. If you didn't have a chance to meet me then and listen about Lincoln Highway, or if you'd like to listen about it again, the whole speech is available on my YouTube channel. So go ahead and play it as many times as you wish. I hope you enjoyed our meetings and maybe will want to explore these two topics a bit deeper on your